The drive back from Amer Fort was a descent into a suffocating, pressurized silence. When the SUV finally hissed to a halt in front of the iron gates of Kashiap Bowen, the dawn was beginning to bleed a pale, sickly gray over the horizon. The mansion, once a place of laughter, stood like a mausoleum in the twilight. Falak reached for the door handle, her movements robotic, her mind a blur of the cold, clinical instructions Saksham had just dictated. She stepped out into the biting morning air, her legs feeling like lead. As she moved away from the car, a sudden, sharp gust of wind swept through the driveway. The midnight blue shawl, loosened by her trembling hands, slipped from her shoulders and pooled onto the damp gravel like a fallen sky. She didn't even have the strength to reach for it. She just stood there, staring at the dark windows of her home. Saksham was out of the car before the fabric could settle. He moved with a grace that felt out of place in the wreckage of the morning. He knelt, his fingers, calloused and steady, closing around the silk. He didn't just hand it to her. He stepped into her space, closing the distance he had sworn for 9 years to maintain. Slowly, almost reverently, he draped the shawl around her shoulders. His movements were agonizingly careful, as if she were made of spun glass that could shatter at the slightest pressure. In that moment, the titan, the ruthless CEO, and the heartless protector vanished. There was only the boy who had once worshipped the ground she walked on. His hands lingered. His long, steady fingers brushed against the curve of her neck and the soft skin of her shoulder. Falak's breath hitched, the sound sharp in the quiet morning. She felt the heat of his touch burn through her skin, a terrifying contrast to the freezing wind. Her fist clenched at her side, her nails digging into her palm as she fought the urge to lean into him, to find the safety she had lost nearly a decade ago. Saksham didn't pull away. He stood so close she could smell the scent of his cologne, sandalwood and rain, and the faint, metallic tang of the dried blood on his bandaged hand. He looked down at her, his eyes finally losing their icy shield. For a heartbeat, he wasn't just looking, he was drinking her in. He traced the lines of exhaustion on her face, the curve of her trembling lips, the tears that had dried on her cheeks. His eyes were a storm of unspoken apologies, for the silence, for the distance, for the darkness he had become. Every year of his yearning was written in that gaze. It was a look of profound, aching pain, wrapped in a love that had turned into something far more dangerous than affection. Falak gulped softly, her throat tight. She looked into his eyes and saw the broken promises of their youth. She saw the boy who had promised never to leave her, and the man who had stayed away because she was broken. Her pain remained unsaid, locked behind a pride that had been her only companion in Spain. A gust of wind tore between them, cold and violent, yet neither moved. The air was thick with the weight of things that couldn't be forgiven and words that could never be taken back. He wanted to say, "I'm sorry." She wanted to ask why. Instead, the silence deepened. Saksham's fingers twitched, a final ghost-like caress against her shoulder, before he forced himself to step back. The wall was up again. The mask of the ruthless strategist clicked into place, so suddenly, it felt like a physical blow. "Go inside, Falak," he said, his voice now a low, hollow rasp. "Don't come out until I call you. Don't defy me, Falak. I mean it." His voice was now dark with something she did not want to name. His gaze was intense, locked with her. She gulped and then looked ahead. Falak didn't look back. She couldn't. She turned and ran toward the house, her shawl clutched tightly to her chest, still carrying the warmth of his hands. Saksham stood in the driveway until the heavy front doors clicked shut. His gaze was fixed on the way she had just gone. He then looked at his hand, the one that had touched her, and slowly curled it into a fist, his knuckles turning white. He had broken the promise to Ma. He had touched the light. He got back into the car and slammed the door, the engine roaring to life with a predatory growl. The time for yearning was over. The truth of London was in his pocket, and the blood of the Singhanias was on his horizon. He would save her family, but in doing so, he knew he was finally, irrevocably, becoming the monster she feared he was. To hear the next chapter and discover more stories like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. You're listening to Chapters of Shobha on YouTube.